frequencies open, and welcome aboard Treks and Tangents. I'm your co-host, Brian.
And I'm your co-host, Jaci. I'm the Star Trek newbie who treks off on tangents.
And I'm your Star Trek expert who is here to get the tangents back on track. Each episode we watch and talk about a different Star Trek episode, and this week we watched
Star Trek, the original series, Season 1, Episode 21, The Return of the Archons.
Welcome back to another episode.
Whoa, was this fun?
I think we're going to have drastically different thoughts. I have purposely withheld my thoughts on this episode as we've been preparing for today. But welcome back to another fun little trip into Star Trek. Quick show news or housekeeping. Over on our Patreon, patreon.com/Treks and Tangents, we're going to start offering and publishing a new bonus supplemental episode each week after our main podcast episode.
Woohoo!
We're going to call it Star Notes. You can thank Jaci for the title.
I love it. Star Notes.
But we're going to pick one, or if the episode is particularly light, two topics where we're going to do a deeper, in-depth dive, kind of allow ourselves to go off on a really big tangent on one specific topic.
Like, where's Jan?
Like, where is Janice?
I miss her. And Gertrude, where are they?
And where is Gertrude? So we'll pick topics that will allow us to maybe talk about canon inconsistencies. Maybe we'll pick an interesting character and go on a deeper dive into their backstory and some of the supplemental non-canon Star Trek material like the comic books or the novels. So tune in. We'll preview each supplemental episode and the topic at the end of each episode. And this will, of course, be published on the same day as the regular podcast every Tuesday, and it will be free to everyone who follows our Patreon.
Free. Very, very free.
So go check it out on the Patreon page, link in the description of the episode, and after you listen, leave a comment. Let us know what you thought. Let us know your own thoughts to the topic. We'd love to hear what you think. And with all that being said, let's just get started with this week's episode. We'll start as we always do by revisiting last week's Turbolift tease. That was where at the end of last week's episode, I gave Jaci the title to this week's episode, and Jaci gave her elevator pitch or Turbolift tease without any other context or information to what she thought the episode's plot was going to be. So computer, what was Jaci's prediction last week?
Jaci was excited about this prediction, which was, it sounds like we are going to be introduced to another alien species, and they are coming home when they interrupt Kirk or an away party that is going through their lair and their home.
So Jaci, what do you think of your prediction for this week?
Almost a home run.
What makes you say that? Because I have thoughts.
Well, maybe not a home run, more like I made it to second base.
Okay. Were we introduced to another alien species? I guess they would be aliens. They're not humans.
Correct. And they used to be alive, so there's two.
They're still alive, and they interrupt an away party that's going through their lair and their home. I guess they do interrupt the away team in their search for the Archon ship. So.
Well, the scouters interrupted them.
What scouters?
Sulu and O'Neill, they went and interrupted everybody to begin with.
Right.
By picking up stuff.
And in turn, they themselves were interrupted because they were there to search for the missing ship.
Yes.
So, okay, I'll give you 75% credit. I'll give you 7.5 out of 10 tribbles.
Oh, thank you.
But what were your initial impressions to the episode?
I found it very easy to watch, but it also was very repetitive, so I kind of got bored at times.
What was repetitive?
We're constantly saying it's like we want to go to the end goal of meeting this unknown god/person, and we keep going round and round, like jumping through hoops, and we never meet them except going through the same hoop finally.
Okay.
Like the Russian dolls. We keep opening tiny, tiny dolls.
Right. So we go from the completely brainwashed people to the underground resistance to the underground resistance, the inner level as the inner priest who does the brainwashing. And then we finally get to the main room, but we have to deal with a hologram. And then we finally get to meet the end result, the little doll in the middle, which is just a computer.
Is it a hologram like Star Wars, or is it a projection? Because I didn't understand that.
Sure. So, not a huge distinction. Well, I guess it would be a distinction in Star Trek. It would be very. Now we're comparing Star Trek to Star Wars, and
Well,
we're opening up a huge can
I
of
didn't
tangent
mean to
worms.
do that. I just meant like our God is against a wall, like a sixth grade math class when they use the projector and the little dry erase pencils, and we saw it on the wall. And then in Star Wars, they're like standing there on a platform, dancing around, saying, "Help me, help me."
Yes. At this point in the Star Trek timeline, you are correct that they are closer and they refer to themselves as projections because in later Star Trek, we will get holograms, which are, I guess the easiest way to say holograms would be 3-dimensional projections. And these projections are just 2-dimensional, like the overhead projector we remember from our classrooms. And to tie it all back to Star Wars would be pretty 2-dimensional projections. But in Star Wars, they call them holograms. We're not getting into Star Wars here.
No, I just was saying there's so many words for the same thing, and it's just like, wow.
I call them holograms because in Star Trek that will become the dominant term. But you are correct in, as of this moment on screen in the episode, it is very much just a projection. And I imagine that's because the writers of Star Trek haven't invented or fleshed out the idea of a hologram yet. They are using what technology their brains can think of as writers.
Well, logically, my man Spock calls it a projection.
Okay. Well, my initial impression of the episode, to get us back on track, this is not an episode I like. There are far too many plot holes in this episode. I really just can't get away from some of those plot holes. There's way too much that just makes absolutely no sense when you break it down. Specifically, the biggest question is going to be, what is the festival, the Red Hour? But more specifically, there's just too many plot points that seem to never get tied off and never get resolved in any of it. It's entertaining, but it's just not a good episode.
I understand, but for the past couple episodes, I've had to work overtime in my brain, and it was nice to just watch a fun thing.
Okay, catering to different audiences. But with all that being said, why don't, Jackie, you just walk us through this week's episode?
So we're just plopped into the episode with Sulu and O'Neill running as fast as they can away from these people, or we're presuming people, in monk outfits. They're brown and hooded, and they're holding like a pipe.
Like staffs.
Yes.
Like brown wood walking sticks. Maybe a little shorter. Bow staffs. Quarter staffs.
But when I looked at it, it looked like a real pipe from the hardware store.
We do see eventually that they are hollow and they are pipes, but
So they're running away, and Sulu comments, "We didn't get the clue. We have no idea what clue they're looking for, but oh well." So they hide around in a corner, and they're trying to get a hold of the Enterprise to beam them up. And they finally get a hold of them, and Kirk is like, "Oh shoot, Scotty, beam them up ASAP." But O'Neill's like, "I can't wait, I'm going," and he runs away.
yeah, it's important to note that they're in a setting that is very much like 1950s building.
It's like the Wild Wild West.
Not quite as rugged as the Wild Wild West. The streets are paved. The buildings are made of plaster or some kind of non-wood shack looking things. It very much is supposed to resemble a 1950s cityscape. I know it's supposed to be.
Because their clothing is very Western.
their clothing at this very moment is very much Paul Revere Revolutionary War time period.
Yes.
We'll get into why the setting looks like it does in our Triple Tidbits at the end.
I have to wait that long? Okay. So O'Neill has run away, but Sulu is waiting for him to be beamed up. I guess you have to stand still and not leave the area. They're not going to beam you up while you're running. So, but then the monk hooded bad man finds Sulu and like touches him, we're assuming with his staff. And then Sulu gets all, he's like stiff as a board, and then he's smiling, and then he beams up to the Enterprise. But where did O'Neill go? We don't know, because now we're back on the Enterprise. So he's up there and he on the Enterprise, and Sulu's like, oh my gosh, look at all we had to do. They don't wear this. And he throws clothing of some sort at the transport crew member. Like, he's very angry. Our happy Sulu is not happy.
Yeah, one of the plot points that gets dropped, he's blaming Lindstrom. I believe it's Lindstrom.
So many names.
Yeah, and they all look alike. They're all just a bunch of generic white guys.
Well, we've been saying they don't give the names, and now they're giving all the names.
Right.
Yeah.
But Sulu gives a throwaway line saying it's Lindstrom's fault. He dressed them in inappropriate clothing for what the natives were wearing. They wear things like this. And then he tosses a bundle of clothing at Lindstrom. They never get into it. It looks like to me that they somehow got a hold of one of the monk's robes.
That's what I thought.
And that's what he's tossing to them. But again, they don't get into it.
So finally, though, Kirk arrives right when Sulu does that, and he like calms Sulu down. He's like, it's okay, calms it down. And he's also called for McCoy to come because he's the doctor, and our happy Sulu is not happy. So let's, help him relax. So everybody's, conjuring around Sulu to make sure he's okay. But where's O'Neill? He never tells him where. And as Sulu is calming down, they're asking him questions like, what happened? What did you see? And Sulu just starts smiling and is our happy Sulu, but his face is blank. You know how when you fake smile? He's totally fake smiling and saying it's all about Landru, and O'Neill's at paradise, and just going on and on with random words. And then we click out and go to the opening credits.
Right.
So we come back from the opening credits and we hear Kirk's captain's log. And he is explaining that the Enterprise is orbiting a planet called Beta 3. And they're trying to find a lost starship. And it's called Archon. And it disappeared over 100 years ago.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe from what I was reading that the Archon is the name of the ship, not the name of the people.
That's what I thought.
Okay.
Too.
Which will later be confusing because they refer to the people from the Archon as the Archon, the people.
Yes. So we have Kirk, Spock, McCoy, Lindstrom, and two other blonde-headed young men beam down in a larger search party down to the planet to see what... First of all, they have to find O'Neill and continue on whatever Sulu and O'Neill was originally trying to do. And the search party has changed into a different time period attire, I did notice.
Now they are wearing clothing that is more along the lines of Westerns. I would say what we imagine Westerns to be from television shows from the 1960s, because they're probably raiding the same costume department as shows like Gunsmoke and so forth.
Yep, John Wayne's just around the corner.
No, he's not. We're not going to see a John Wayne Star Trek crossover.
That'd be really fun. But weirdly, Spock is not wearing anything like that. He is just wearing a giant poncho with a hood, and I presume it's because he's hiding his ears.
100%, because they don't have any other way to disguise that. I guess he could have wore a hat, but yeah,
he would look really terrible in a hat because those little bowler hats in that time period just sat on the head.
Yeah, and he's got weird eyebrows. He has weird coloration. So the hood, I think, is the most effective way to hide his appearance. Fun fact, it also allowed them to save some money because they wouldn't have to do up his ears for these scenes.
Well, then that answers my question about one time he has totally white ears and his face was different.
That could be it. Someone probably realized, oh shoot, we have a scene to shoot today where we have to see his ears. Let's throw them on real quick.
But so, yes, he's just standing out like a sore thumb, but they're all there together. And as they're looking around, there's the townspeople, but they're all walking as if they're walking the track at a football field. They're just walking happily around the town, down the street, around they go, smiling, they're mindless, those fake smiles, enjoying their day.
And Spock gives a really good description of someone who walks pretty close by them as mindlessness, vacancy, contentment.
Exactly.
Because they're not zombies in the sense that they are ambling aimlessly, although it kind of looks like it, but they're just completely brainwashed in a state of pure contentment and bliss.
So, as they're starting to walk, we're interrupted, though, by this gentleman who just says, "Joy to you, friends." And then Kirk responds in the same way, like as a mirror, because they don't know what to say to them. And the man recognizes that they are strangers, and he wants to know, where are you from? Like, why are you here? You must need rooms. You can go to this gentleman up the way, Mr. Rager. Are you here for the festival? It's almost the red hour. It's just going on and on and on. And all the time, nothing else is happening. It's the same. Everyone is just going around in a circle. And it's almost 6:00.
Right. And as just a side note, we also at this moment meet a tertiary character named Tula, who comes. I'm going to point this out. It seems like Tula chooses to approach the conversation that's going on. I'm building my own headcanon here. Everyone else is wandering aimlessly and paying no attention to the conversation between the stranger and the away team. Tula seems to come up to them.
Well, after her daddy's name was mentioned.
So, but again, I'm saying that she makes the choice to go up to them. Little side note we'll talk about later. But she is the daughter of Rager, who is mentioned as owning a home that might have rooms for these travelers that they should go check out. But very quickly, everything changes.
Yes, because the clock strikes 6:00, and it's like all these happy, normal people explode into looting, like after a soccer game, the losing team is going crazy, like literally throwing things, attacking each other, setting things on fire. But then also we see a couple like making out. So is it a good thing or is it a bad thing that's happening, or is it both?
I think it's a bad thing because look at all the evidence: property destruction, violence against each other because they're beating each other up. So
It's just so weird.
we also see how traumatized Tula is in the moment. So there's probably a lot of assault of various degrees and kind going on upon everyone. It's a riot. This is probably the first iteration of The Purge.
I haven't seen that.
We'll do a bonus episode on The Purge. I'll make a note.
Yes, so that while the clock is striking and all that's happening, just like you said, Tula is literally screaming and clawing at her neck and chest. And they're like, whoa, what's happening? So they all run to Rager's house, not Tula and not the man that introduced himself, just the Enterprise crew.
Yes.
And they run into the house, and 3 older gentlemen are there, and they surprise them.
Right. And I'll call out their names because, again, Star Trek is not good at introducing character names in a timely manner. We have Rhaegar, who is the owner of the home, father to Tula that we met earlier. We have Tamar, who is the taller gentleman who primarily stays in the background for much of the conversation. And then we have Hakam, who is ultimately the gentleman who becomes the Tattletale.
Yes, I named him that.
The Tattletale?
Yes.
Okay. So we'll call them Rhaegar, the Tattletale, and the Passive.
They all walk into a bar. No, I'm kidding. So, Kirk, of course, apologizes that they just barged in. They didn't have anywhere else to go, but they were suggested to go here before all the riot happened. And the older gentleman asked, as if nothing's happening, "Are you from the valley? What brings you here?" Just random things. And then Kirk doesn't really answer. So the taller gentleman goes, "They just have different rules down in the valley."
Which Hakam doesn't really buy throughout the conversation. Also pointing out, everyone seems surprised that Kirk and the away team are not outside participating in the festival. This is definitely an abnormality.
Yes, because they mentioned they're young enough. So is there an age break?
We have to assume that at a certain point, elder members of the community are not expected to participate in this mayhem and riot for the festival. But again, it's unusual for Kirk and the away team not to be participating in this. Tamar tries to explain it away that they're from somewhere else and they may have different rules and rituals and practices. But Hakam, again, is pushing back, saying this is the way it is everywhere. This is completely part of Landru's plan and Landru's law, Landru being their godlike figure who's everywhere and controls everything. So why is it even a possibility for there to be different societal practices if this is supposed to be planet-wide?
I mean, even the taller gentleman comments that, and Tattletale gets insulted, and he goes off to tattle on his friend that you would think is his friend.
Right. Eventually, Rhaegar has at least accepted Tamar's explanation as to why things are different. They're just looking for lodging, someplace to rest after the festival. Let me show you to your rooms and get you settled, and then you can go out and participate in the mayhem and the looting and the destruction of our beautiful town, fair visitors. And yes, Hakam runs away to say, I'm going to tell on all of you. The strangers are no good. They're not part of, quote, the body. They're infidels, be a good term to describe it. And yes, he's going to tattle on Tamar too for him talking crap about the lawgivers and the rule of law.
So now Rhaegar takes Kirk and everybody to the lodging room that they can sleep for the evening, and there's bunk beds in there. So he's ready for everybody. And Kirk is looking out the window as they're all talking, and that's where we see more mayhem. Like, doesn't stop. It's crazy. And it's like Rhaegar forgets that they're not going to the festival because he keeps reminding them that they should go out and have fun.
Yeah, he's slightly alarmed to hear that these visitors are not going to be participating in the festival. Kirk again reiterates we have no plans to go out and participate in the festival, but he doesn't have the same reaction that Hakam had. He's not angry. He's not bewildered. He's just slightly confused more than anything.
And there's not even a reaction when McCoy asks him, "Why isn't Tula here? Like, your daughter, she's just right outside."
Yeah, he's very much explaining that away as, well, this is festival, this is what has to happen, this is what Landry wants. More interesting is why he doesn't immediately go tell on Kirk and everyone else for not participating in the festival.
We learn about that later.
Right.
And while they're all doing this riot, the people are joyful. Like, there's a huge 180 from just the content, mindless, just wandering, and now they're intently enjoying themselves while breaking things.
Right.
So now we are just with Kirk and crew, and Kirk has decided that they probably have all night to figure out their game plan for the morning. So 6 o'clock chimes again, and the party stops. Nobody's cleaning up the mess, though, but they're all mindlessly walking around again.
Right. They don't go home.
And sleep.
They don't go tend to their wounds because we've literally watched them beat each other up, get thrown through windows, etc., etc. They literally just they don't even dust themselves off. They just immediately start their slow walk up and down the street.
But Tula, though, she has finally come home, and she doesn't seem to have calmed down, though. She's still freaking out.
Yeah, she's acting differently. I think that she has a similar characteristic that is shared with her father. And I'm going to get into it more a little bit later in the episode for my theory, but you are correct. It's also why I pointed out when they first met Tula, Tula made a conscious choice to go engage in conversation with the away team and the strange man.
Like she has, will, free will.
She has some resistance to Landru.
Oh, that makes a lot more sense.
Because when the festival stopped and everyone is back to being brainwashed and going about their business, she is violently upset. She is visibly shaken. She is crying. Spock and McCoy take her into another room and sedate her to calm her down. No one else who was participating in the festival the night before is acting this way.
I think also with them being able to do that, that's when Reger and Tamar start to think that the away team are the actual Archons because they have these powers, quote unquote. And so they need to be hidden from the lawgivers, which are those people we assume people in those brown monk hood things with the pipe.
Right, because they all eventually follow Spock, Tula, McCoy into a parlor or sitting room. And yes, point blank, Reger and Tamar ask the away team, ask Kirk, are they the Archons? Are they the Archons? Have they come back? Is what they're asking.
Because it's a prophecy.
Which we learn. Kind of.
But of course, Kirk says, don't worry about us. We're good, friend. You calm down. And then that old man comes in, and he brought with him the 2 more lawgivers. Well, they're called lawgivers for some strange reason. Well, it's a really stupid name.
They are the ones that enforce the laws of Landru. So they give the law to the people. They're priests.
So Tattletale ignores Kirk and co. and says, that's the guy that talked bad about you. And Tamar's like, it was just a joke. I didn't mean anything. And they ignore him and they kill him by using what looks like a cloud mist and fireworks flames.
Sparklers.
Yeah, sparklers.
Yeah, that come out of the end of this staff. Jaci calls it a pipe. But it's important to point out that this attack from their staff does in fact kill Tamar.
And then the lawgivers then turn to Kirk and say, all of you are not of the body and you will be absorbed. And then we have a commercial break. It's dramatic. We come back from the commercial and Kirk tells them he will not go anywhere with them. He refuses to leave. And the lawgivers are confused. They even have a huddle on what to do. And this is where Spock notices and goes to Kirk saying they don't know what to do when they aren't obeyed.
They're not used to facing outright disobedience.
So then they turn back around the lawgivers and they're like, you must be confused. Let's tell you again. You have to come with us because you're going to go into the absorbing chamber. Just letting you know. And Kirk ignores them and says, why did you kill that guy? And then one of the monks says, out of order, you better come with us to Landru. Kirk again refuses. They'll go see Landru when they have time. They're busy at the moment. And he even takes the pipe, staff, whatever, from one of the monk people and gives it to Spock to investigate. And it's like the monk kind of, I can see like inside, like he wants to stomp his feet and be like, you cannot take my toy kind of thing. And there's like a loud whirling noise that we hear. And the ones that live there start saying, it's Landrew. And then Mr. Tattletale runs out of the room.
Make a quick note here. It's at this point that Spock makes an offhanded comment as he examines the tube staff from the lawgiver, talking about how it's just a staff, it's just a hollow tube, there's no mechanism. I don't know how that can be because
Sparklers.
we saw the sparklers and the smoke and it killed Tamar. But let's pretend that it's all psychic ability and it's Landrew somehow having this telepathic ability to kill Tamar. Fine, because Tamar is under the influence and he lives on the planet and he's already been exposed to Landrew and all of that. Fine. How does this staff then brainwash Sulu?
Yeah, because he literally touches Sulu.
How does, and on that same note, how does Sulu become brainwashed by being exposed to the staff, but everyone else is forced to go to the absorption chamber to become brainwashed?
That's too much to think about. There's already enough to think.
Yeah, it's one of the plot holes that brings this episode down for me. So anyway, we come back to the plot, and Rager says he knows a safe place they can go before Landrew comes, where they can all hide.
So they go outside the hum, and everyone is just walking around still, looking crazy. And the group is trying to kind of like walk in a line so they're not noticed, I would presume. But of course, our man that we met first before comes again to say hello again. And then Rager notices a change, and then the body has been summoned by Landrew, because they've all stopped the people and been down to pick up any kind of weapon and start chasing them, because Landrew has caught on about Kirk and everybody being there. Kirk tells his crew that, don't get your phasers out, but put them on stun. And then Spock also comments that all of that happening with the crowd, it was done by telepathy.
It would have to be telepathy, according to Spock. That's what he's proposing. He's proposing a hypothesis.
Which makes sense to me. So the crowd closes in, and they have to stun everybody to be able to get past them. And as they're going by, they realize one of them is O'Neill. So they grab him to bring him with them. And Rager's like, no, don't bring him, because, Landrew will find us. But, don't leave one behind. So they all take O'Neill with them to the safe place that Rager has told them about. And inside this safe place, kind of like a bunker, it's like stone. It's really pretty. He pushes aside a bunk bed and pulls out a beautiful lighting tile that is like 6,000 years old. And even Spock goes, whoa, that doesn't go here.
Yeah. Specifically, they don't comment that it's 6,000 years old. They just comment that it is technology that is far more advanced than anything that they've seen so far on the planet. There's talk about how it came from a time before Landrew, and he says that no one knows when that was, but it could be as far back as 6,000 years old. So they don't really date it, but they kind of date the time period that it's from.
And McCoy is attending to O'Neill, who they have on the bunk bed, and he is starting to wake up, and they make sure that he stays asleep by giving him another shot.
Spock also picks up and reports that he's detecting huge energy field readings that are coming from nearby and all around them, but not any kind of specific source.
So Rieger goes on to explain that he's part of an underground organization that is immune to whatever Landrew has, like the power that he has of these people. And they are organized in groups of 3 to be able to stay safe. And Tamar was Rieger's contact, and he was the one that knew the third person. So Rieger doesn't know who the other person is.
Which I think is complete crap, because later we find out who the third person is. he introduces himself. Rieger seems way too
Friendly.
with this new person and not cautious at all. So I would explain this away as Rieger is still being slightly cautious toward Kirk and the away team and not giving away all the information at once.
Kirk asked Rieger about the Archons, like you called us out earlier. Why are you asking about it? And Rieger goes on to say that roughly 100 years ago, Landru was so powerful that he just plucked this star from the sky, and it happened to be a bunch of people that were absorbed into what we call the body.
Right. And come on, Kirk, and come on, Spock. We're literally spoon feeding you this information. They're called the Archons. The ship that you're looking for is the Archon. The ship disappeared 100 years ago. The Archons appeared on Beta 3 to these people 100 years ago. Draw the parallel, come to the conclusion it's the same thing. But in any case, this information triggers Kirk and Spot to surmise that the power readings that they're picking up from all around them is powerful enough to take down a starship. Kirk calls up to the Enterprise, gets Scotty, because Scotty's in charge at this moment, because think about it, McCoy's down on the surface, Spock is down on the surface, Sulu's incapacitated. Makes sense that Scotty's in charge. But Scotty says that they're fighting off heat beams. They've diverted all of their power to their deflector shields, and they don't even have enough energy and power to divert into any form of engines for propulsion. So we're back in another situation where the Enterprise has no power for their engines. They're in orbit. They can't adjust their orbit, and they will eventually crash into the planet. Specifically, Scotty says they have about 12 hours before that happens.
And then a projection appears on the wall, and we learn that this is Landru. He tells Kirk that he has created a perfect world of peace and harmony, and Kirk and the away team threaten that. So, to make it better and all, he's just going to absorb them into the body. And then we have a super high whirling sound that knocks everybody unconscious. And then we get a commercial break. Kirk regains consciousness in a new place. Same like Stone Bunker, but still new, and there's torches all around. But if they're in a stone cave, is there going to be like carbon monoxide or some kind of deadly gas?
We certainly don't see any windows to help get fresh air in. I'm going to pretend that they're just out of camera shot.
So Kirk wakes everyone up, but he notices that McCoy, O'Neill, and another guard, they never say his name, are missing.
They also don't mention it, but we should point out Rieger's gone.
That's right.
We never see Rieger here as part of the captured party.
And he never even talks about him. It's like gone.
Yeah, they don't mention that he's gone.
Oh, yeah. So Spock goes on saying that they've been moved to some kind of maximum security establishment. They don't really know. And then we hear that Lindstrom has this major big headache and it's okay. It's from the hypersonic, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Suddenly a door opens and McCoy and the other guard walk in. And they go to greet McCoy, and McCoy just goes, "Hello, friend. We were told to wait here." And then he has that weird empty smiley face on, and he just goes to sit down. I mean, Kirk even like shakes McCoy. "Wake up. What are you doing?" McCoy just goes on about how Landry remembers everything and he's of the body, and he sits down. Another monk pops in and tells them to come with him. Kirk refuses, and the lawgiver says, "Then you're going to die."
They very quickly have figured out their little logical impasse. And, oh, you want to show open defiance? We're not confused by that anymore. We'll just kill you.
Kirk goes with the lawgiver, and then we have a hard jump to a new room. It's the control room, actually. And Kirk is like shackled against the wall, and in walks another gentleman, Marplan. He relieves the lawgiver that's already at the control panel and tells him he's on a break. So he turns on the machines, and we hear a whirring, like a whir. Then we jump back to where the men are being held in all together, and Spock is trying to mind meld on McCoy, but he's unable to break through. There's so much control over him already. A lawgiver comes in and takes Spock out to replace Kirk. When Spock goes into the room where Kirk is, they pass each other, and Kirk is acting just as if he is brainwashed with the whole blank face, and says, "Joy to you, friend." And we see that fancy eye raise of Spock's, and then we have a commercial break. Coming back from the break, Spock is now shackled at the exact same space that Kirk was. Marplon tells Spock not to be worried. He frees Spock from the shackles, and he also tells him that he's the third of the triad with Rager. We don't know where Rager is yet, but he'll show up later. He gives Spock the phasers back and tells him to act just like Kirk did. The lawgivers show up, and they take Spock back to the cell, where he joins with Kirk and Lindstrom, and they have to stay out of earshot of McCoy so that they can discuss a plan of what's happening next. And McCoy keeps trying to eavesdrop. Marplon and Rager come into the room. McCoy greets them, and they greet him back. Marplon returns the communicators to Kirk. Kirk wants more information about Landru. McCoy realizes that they are talking not as of the body and starts to yell
to summon the lawgivers so that he can tattle on them. And McCoy and the other security officer end up attacking the group. They end up getting knocked out and subdued, but the commotion and McCoy shouting does in fact summon the lawgivers. Two of them enter the cell. Spock and Kirk end up knocking them out, which is advantageous to them because they now can steal their robes. Kirk ends up convincing Marplon and Rager that they need to help them confront Landru, and while they both agree, at the last minute, Rager freaks out and tries to run away and ends up getting nerve pinched out by Spock. So now it's just Marplon who leads Spock and Kirk to the Hall of Audiences to confront Landru.
And Kirk and Spock call for Landru to appear. The projection appears on the wall and starts yelling at them, calling him a disease and a parasite, and that the body has to be cleansed. Instead of just absorbing the two, he's just going to get rid of them and whatever else they touch. They're not worthy to be in the body.
Along with everyone else that has come in contact with them, has memory of them, has knowledge of them, he's going to wipe out their collective existence as much as he can from the collective society.
As an experiment, they try to use their phasers to break the wall that the projection is on, and they're able to break through it. That shows a giant computer. We learn that that giant computer is Landru, but like 6,000 years old Landru. He made himself into the programming. They have an argument over what the good of the body is. Kirk is trying to explain that Landru is actually harming his people by doing what he's doing. He's not allowing them to grow. They're stagnant. And because they're arguing and arguing and arguing, the computer actually short circuits and explodes itself.
Right. Kirk is able to successfully confuse the computer by arguing that the computer Landru is in fact harming the collective society, which goes against its core programming. Therefore, it is directed that it has to destroy itself.
Kirk then tells Marplon that he's on his own now.
Nonchalantly.
He might want to get rid of those ugly robes. And come to find out, those heat rays that are holding Enterprise are also gone, and Sulu is back to normal.
Immediately.
And he goes right into a spot on the bridge.
Very short tangent. If the destruction of the computer is what caused Sulu to break free from the telepathy mind control, how is it that less than 15 seconds after the computer is destroyed, that Sulu has woken up, been assessed by the ship's crew to be fit for duty, and allowed to return to the bridge and be in place to resume his station?
It's very, very fast.
Right.
And then we also learned that Lindstrom, along with a bunch of experts stayed on the planet, Beta 3, to help the people of that planet create a new society. So that's pretty interesting to learn.
Yeah, much like the Carbonite maneuver when the crew member stays with that alien to go explore.
Because humans are nice. And Lindstrom also does say that there are fights and arguments, but it's good to actually be humans down there. Spock mentions how mankind has wished for a world as peaceful and secure as the one Landry provided, but Kirk interrupts with, yeah, we just never got it. We're just lucky, I guess. And then they exchange smiles.
And roll credits. So, Jaci, what are your final thoughts and impressions? What did you think about Season 1, Episode 21, The Return of the Archons?
I mean, like I said earlier, I really liked it. Now that I see your points, I see where it fell through, but I think it was still entertaining.
The entertainment factor does not save the episode for me. There is far too many plot holes. We touched on a few of them. We'll touch on more of them in our Star Note supplementary episode that we'll post later. But besides the festival and the Red Hour riot chaos, never receiving an explanation, never getting further into detail to the reason why there are some people that are just immune to Landru, I'll share it now. My thought, I think some of the people are descendants of the crew of the Archon ship, and I think that the introduction of aliens into the planet, I think some of them created offspring with some of the natives to the planet on Beta 3, and I believe that somehow that combination of genetics and mutations caused their offspring to have resistance to the telepathy effects of Landru. So Rhaegar, his daughter Tula, would have been offspring somehow from those descendants. All a missed opportunity to tie in the Archons, the myth of the Archons, the prophecy of the Archons, all fell short.
It could have been like a part 2 or 3.
I really wish we would have gotten that. So, yeah, just kind of had some entertaining moments, but ultimately this episode falls flat for me. We'll round out our final thoughts here with our favorite quote from the episode. Jaci, what's your favorite quote?
Kirk actually tells Spock that, Mr. Spock, the plug must be pulled. And he's describing how he has to kill Landru, the computer, because this is not an actual living organism. Because Spock asks, I mean, we took an oath. Why are we killing something when we should be pushing it to grow?
It's a good quote because it's also a moment in the episode where they're starting to formulate this hypothesis that Landru is not an alien creature with telepathy powers, but instead is a computer. They're drawing parallels to computers. So I think that's the first instance where we kind of see the light bulb click for them that it's a machine. I have a similar quote for a very similar part of the episode as they're starting to put the pieces together. It's Spock in describing the situation and the inhabitants of Beta 3 to Kirk. Spock says, "This is a soulless society, Captain. It has no spirit, no spark. All is indeed peace and tranquility, the peace of the factory, the tranquility of the machine, all parts working in unison." I like the quote because, again, it's a moment where Spock is diving deeper into the inhabitants of the planet are more than just brainless zombies wandering about their day. They are being controlled by a central thought or brain like a machine, and they're doing so for a purpose. I think that's the first parallel that Spock draws to say that all of this has a purpose. Ultimately, the purpose is to have the most perfect society in Landru's eyes. But those are going to be our quotes. I have very few Tribble tidbits or fun facts for the episode. And why do we call them Tribble tidbits, Jaci?
Because they're amazing.
Because Jaci doesn't understand what Tribbles are. They're both a blessing and a curse. This episode first aired February 9, 1967. I think the best story I've seen so far on set was many of the regulars on the show, and I would imagine some of the extras, all were trying to quit smoking at the time of filming. Again, Roddenberry would not allow any of the actors or crew to smoke on set. He felt that society in the future would have moved beyond tobacco and cigarettes. So I would imagine a lot of them were trying to quit smoking or fighting nicotine fits as they weren't allowed to smoke in between takes. So a lot of them resorted to chewing gum on set. This drove the director Joseph Pevney insane. So many takes were ruined in this episode as they were filming because someone had gum in their mouth and forgot to spit it out.
All chewing like a cow.
Yeah, so as a prank, William Shatner went around before one big scene. I imagine it was probably one of the early scenes with everyone first walking around outside, but there were a lot of extras in the shot. And so he went around and he handed out bubble gum to everyone. And then as soon as the director called action, they all blew a giant bubble just to tick him off. So
That sounds amazing.
Ben Stiller, the modern day actor, has his own production company, as many actors do. His production company is named Red Hour, and that is directly influenced by this episode. My last triple tidbit is that the reason why I know it's supposed to be 1950s buildings and sets for the exterior shots, this is the same backlot that they shot Miri on. So Jackie's flabbergasted. But it
That's awesome.
But it makes sense.
Yeah.
They're not going to build an entire city. They're just going to reuse their backlots. So, yeah, same scenes.
It was a very creative episode.
Same buildings, but those are going to be your triple tidbits. And this is the part of the episode where we share our episode ranking, where we pretend that the episode is a member of our crew for our fictitious starship, one starship per season of Star Trek. And we assign it a Starfleet rank. A higher rank not only means we found the episode more entertaining, but we also find it to be a more valuable member of our crew. The opposite, of course, is true. A lower rank means we found it less entertaining, and we think it is a more disposable member of our crew. Our rankings begin at the bottom with Ensign, Lieutenant Junior Grade, Lieutenant, all of which we can have an unlimited number of crew members at that rank. Then we have 7 lieutenant commanders, 5 commanders, 1 captain, and 1 admiral. If none of this makes sense, don't worry. We post a visual representation of our rankings over at our Patreon at patreon.com every Wednesday after the episode goes live. Feel free, everyone can go check it out and see where our rankings stack up. Jaci, this week for your starship, the USS Galactic Glitterbee, what rank do you give the return of the Archons?
I'm going to have it join the 3 that are already down with my lieutenant. A nice set of 4 there.
Okay, that's going to be right about the middle of the road in our episode ranking, but under the middle of the road. Jaci, why are you giving it this ranking?
I'm just giving it this ranking just to keep it right where it needs to be. It doesn't need to go any higher. It was just nifty.
All right. And for my starship, the USS Cosmic Shark, boy howdy, I don't want to do it, but it's going to go right at the bottom under Ensign.
You're making a really hard Tetris symbol.
Yeah, so this is going to be bottom for me. This episode falls completely flat. Interesting premise. I enjoy the fact that it touches on, I like the overall arcing story. I like the idea of a supercomputer having telepathic powers, controlling the population as a means to create the perfect society while also at a time enslaving the society. But there's way too many plot holes, guys. There's way too many. There's an entire scene of a riot that they don't address. It makes no sense that Sulu can be brainwashed with one of the staffs, but then everyone else needs to be taken to the absorption room to be brainwashed by an even larger machine. It makes no sense that they're searching for a ship called the Archon, and there's a mythical creature that's supposed to return to the people called the Archons, and no one draws a parallel to it. They never find the ship. They never touch on the fact of what the prophecy is. Way too many inconsistencies. It's not a good episode. It's not written well. Maybe someone can dig out some behind the scenes, some lost footage, some cut footage, and piece it all back together to make sense, but I'm just going to throw this one away.
They were all upset because of their lack of cigarettes.
That's right. As of the recording of this episode, IMDb ranks the episode as a 7.1 out of 10.
Whoa.
I think a lot of people like it. I don't know why. Again, as a reminder, updated graphics to our rankings will be posted on our Patreon at patreon.com/treksandtangents on Wednesday after the episode goes live. And finally, we'll wrap up this episode by giving next week's Turbolift tease. This is where I give Jaci the title of next week's episode, and Jaci, without any other information, without any other context, and without any other idea as to what the episode is about, will try to guess the plot of that episode. Jaci, next week's episode is entitled Space Seed.
I really hope that this one is when we see Gertrude or one of her relatives, that pink flower we met a long time ago with Sulu and Janice in the little floral area. That will be super cute.
And tune in next week to see how accurate Jaci's prediction is. If you want more show information, you can find and directly support our podcast on Patreon at patreon.com/treksandtangents. Don't forget, starting this episode this week, posted at the same time, we will start posting our Star Note bonus supplemental series episode tied directly into this episode. This week's topic is going to be, what is the purpose of the festival and the Red Hour? It'll be available for everyone over at our Patreon who follows us on Patreon, patreon.com/treksandtangents. We mentioned we post graphical representations of our episode rankings. We also have, for our crew members who support our Patreon, a monthly deep dive into Star Trek, the animated series. All of our test episodes are posted there as well. Come check us out.
Especially all the beginning ones, because I got so much better.
Yes. If you want to, also, you can follow us on x.com for updates at Treks_tangents. We're also on Instagram and Blue Sky at Treks and Tangents. Jaci, where can people find you, and what are you up to?
I am on Instagram as Jaboom, Jibboom. I need to make a song like Mickey Mouse. But I have a lot of disability advocacy, service dog information, fashion. I play all kinds of musical instruments. Look for me there. And I also have a shop on Whatnot. It's Gutterbow Boutique.
All right, you can watch me stream a variety of video games over at twitch.tv/PiratePoundTown. Those of you that play World of Warcraft, the Midnight Expansion is out as of this release.
That's exciting.
So I plan on spending a lot of time playing World of Warcraft and streaming. Come check me out. On YouTube, I'll also try to post some summary videos, and I always post video game content. Find me on YouTube, also at Pirate Pound Town. My secondary channel on YouTube is Pirate Treasure Hunting, where you can find coin collecting and other hobby content. I post socially on Blue Sky at Pirate Pound Town, and I can also be found on Instagram under Pineapple Cannibal. Links to all social media mentioned can be found in the episode description. Thank you everyone for tuning in to this episode. We hope you had fun like we did, and we will see you all next week.
Peace and harmony, friends.
End transmission.